A great love, perfect love, is an illusion. It is the golden fable of which we all dream.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 most scandalous old Hollywood breakups.
I think I had some hopes that he would say, oh, well, in that case, let's get married. But it wasn't that way. It didn't happen that way.
For this list, we'll be looking at the romantic splits that shocked the nation in the days of old Hollywood. Which of these breakups gets you the most? Let us know in the comments. Number 10, Judy Garland and Sidney Luft. Judy Garland was married 5 times throughout her tragically short life.
No more his eager call.
The most contentious of those unions was probably to Sidney Luft. Luft, who was a movie producer and manager, would have 5 marriages in his life. Sparks flew between him and Garland at a New York City nightclub, even though they both had other spouses at the time.
I'm certainly mixed up now. I thought I was doing just fine.
The pair would go on to wed in 1952. However, things started to get bumpy and would eventually come to a tumultuous end. Indeed, by 1965, Garland and Luft were divorced, with her alleging that he was frequently intoxicated and violent.
Love isn't enough. I thought it was.
Number 9, Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford. The start of Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks' relationship was rocky, to say the least, as they were both married people when they first crossed paths. But when the pair tied the knot in 1920, they quickly became dubbed the King and Queen of Hollywood in its silent era.
He had a genius for making Mary happy. For the first time in her life, she could depend on a man.
At the beginning of their union, they seemed inseparable. As the decade came to an end and talking pictures gained prominence though, trouble arrived for their stardom and their marriage.
Pickford in particular floundered, taking to drinking when the public lost interest in the kind of innocent maidens she specialized in.
They both reportedly began to suspect the other of infidelity, and apparently both eventually did start affairs. However, definitive evidence of her cheating is more scarce. Nevertheless, they divorced in 1936.
Her marriage was gone. And with the failure of Secrets, her career was gone.
Number 8, Sophia Loren and Cary Grant. Sophia Loren is one of the most iconic women of the classic Hollywood era. As a young star taking on Hollywood, she began an affair with one of Tinseltown's most famous leading men.
The king will want to meet you, of course. And you can tell him how once, long ago in Spain, you met an English captain and made him the proudest man in the world.
Even though she was with Carlo Ponti, Loren began seeing Cary Grant in the mid-50s. They were starring in The Pride and the Passion together, and Grant was married to Betsy Drake at the time. Yet he was deeply enchanted with Loren.
I'm afraid that tonight is just a dream, and it won't last.
It will, I promise you.
She ended up co-starring in Houseboat alongside him, in a part that Drake was reportedly meant to play. Still, Loren ended things with Grant and tied the knot with Ponti.
A little bit big-headed is all right.
You ought to know.
Number 7, Jimmy Stewart and Marlene Dietrich. For the early part of his career, Jimmy Stewart was one of the most recognizable bachelors in Hollywood.
I don't want any plastics, I don't want any ground floors, and I don't want to get married ever to anyone. You understand that?
The leading man wouldn't tie the knot until 1949. But before he settled down, he had an affair with an actress, Marlene Dietrich.
It's wonderful this time of the year. You would like it there. How about it?
The two were co-stars in 1939's Destry Rides Again, and it reportedly soon turned romantic. However, Dietrich is said to have become pregnant as a result of their relationship. While it's unclear exactly what happened, she reportedly terminated the pregnancy. As for the two of them, it seems things didn't last very long, with sources claiming he was the one who ended things.
Did you figure out it was CARY that won't run?
Well, I'm afraid that's a little out of my field.
All right. I'll be as good as new in a minute.
Number 6, Marlon Brando and Rita Moreno. Marlon Brando is one of the most celebrated actors of the old Hollywood era, but his intimate relationships were a different story.
Have you ever been so obsessed by somebody that you feel as if you can't breathe without them. That's how Marlon felt about himself.
For a little under a decade, Brando and actress Rita Moreno dated on and off. When Moreno became pregnant, Brando sent her to get an abortion that would go wrong.
My roommate, my girlfriend, very close friend, said, "This is not supposed to happen." Very scary, because I could have died.
She was struggling so much in the relationship that at one point, she attempted to take her own life. Afterwards, the two broke things off.
I went back into therapy and stayed in therapy for about another month, and then I said, I think it's time for me to go. I think I've done what I had to do. I have exorcised this man from my life.
They made a movie together in the late 60s when, according to Moreno, Brando wanted to give things another shot, but she was in a much better spot and turned him down. She's been quoted as saying he was a bad guy when it came to women.
When he would take advantage of me, when he had other women. Pond scum came to the surface.
Number 5, Arthur Miller and Marilyn Monroe. At first glance, Arthur Miller and Marilyn Monroe were polar opposites, but before they married, the two were madly in love. Unfortunately, after tying the knots, things turned sour. While the two were in the UK, so Monroe could film 1957's The Prince and the Showgirl, she found some writings Miller had made about her. Exactly what he said is unclear, but it's believed he claimed he wasn't loving married life.
Marilyn told her acting coach it was something about how disappointed he was in me, how he thought I was some kind of angel, but now he guessed he was wrong.
Monroe was said to be extremely saddened by this revelation. Things didn't get better, and multiple failed pregnancies were also reportedly adding to the tumult in their relationship. Their marriage officially ended in 1961.
I think you're the saddest girl I ever met.
You're the first man ever said that.
Number 4, Greta Garbo and John Gilbert. When it comes to the legendary relationship between Greta Garbo and John Gilbert, there's a chance nothing happened at all.
It's true. There's a mystery in you.
Is there not in every human being?
Some suspect that MGM made up the reports of a romance between the two silent film stars to support their roles on screen. But if reports of their affair are true, it has one of the most shocking endings in Hollywood history.
Why did you go out of your way to make me ridiculous? All that idiotic talk of love and beauty that made my heart beat, made me dream like a fool and talk like one.
Apparently, Gilbert had the idea to set up a double wedding for him and Garbo with director and friend King Vidor. Yet, when the big day arrived, Garbo was nowhere to be found, reportedly leaving Gilbert bereft. Number 3, Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner. Sometimes the steamiest affairs aren't quite love at first sight.
I only have eyes for you.
This coming from a married man.
When Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner first met in the 1940s, she apparently wasn't a huge fan. Gardner thought Sinatra was conceited and egotistical, but later she was seemingly able to overlook those traits. They had a lot in common, both loving partying and intimacy, but they also reportedly had trouble being by themselves and had jealous streaks, which led to terrible fights.
They had a very passionate relationship, but at the same time a very sort of turbulent relationship.
When their affair came to light, Sinatra was married at the time, things went down the drain for the singer career-wise. The two got married in 1951, but after infidelity and one too many fights, officially divorced 6 years later.
Tina Sinatra told Anthony and I, Ava wasn't going to be tied down by one person.
Number 2, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. During the 1960s, Liz and Dick were a staple of the tabloids. The two hit it off on the set of 1963's Cleopatra, while they both had spouses. But that didn't stop them.
Lovers always want so much never to have loved before.
It's possible, you know.
The pair married in 1964 and had a wild, glamorous lifestyle that the press could not get enough of. But with great passion comes great trouble.
If I be waspish, best beware my sting.
My remedy then is to pluck it out.
Aye, if the fool could find where it lies.
There were multiple reports of wild spending, infidelity, and substance use disorder. and the two divorced in 1974. That wasn't the end, however. Roughly a year later, they gave it another shot and got married again. But this time, the union wouldn't even last a full trip around the sun.
There was a second back there. Yeah, there was a second. Just a second when I could have gotten through to you. When maybe we could have cut through all this crap. But it's past. And I'm not going to try.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher. Elizabeth Taylor had her own wild marriages and splits, but she also played a part in a breakup of one of her best friends, actress Debbie Reynolds.
When she married Mike, I was her matron of honor. Down in Acapulco, I washed her hair, I set her hair, and got her all dressed for her wedding. Little did I know what the future was going to be.
Reynolds married singer Eddie Fisher in 1955. Reynolds and Fisher were close with Taylor and her husband at the time, Mike Todd. But after Todd passed away in 1958, things took a turn for the worse.
Naturally, my father flew to Elizabeth's side, gradually making his way slowly to her front.
It didn't take long before Reynolds learned that Taylor and Fisher had been having an affair. In 1959, her and Fisher's marriage officially ended, and he ended up tying the knot with Taylor. Still, the scandal took hold of the public consciousness. As a result, Fisher's variety TV show was pulled off the air.
If you think there were big tabloid stories, there was no bigger tabloid story. None. Than Eddie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds, Elizabeth Taylor.